Welcome to Financial Literacy Month. Those of us in this office celebrate April as Financial Literacy Month. It may be not quite as popular outside of our office, but what we want to do this month is kind of intro you guys to some of the lingo or the jargon that we talk about in our world that sometimes we will even say and assume that everybody knows what we're talking about. And then sometimes we get those stares across the table and we think, they have no idea what we just said, do they? So we want to talk through some of those today and just introduce you guys to some of those concepts in kind of a fun way. So one that we get a lot of times is, what in the world is the difference between an IRA and a Roth IRA? Most people look at those and are like, you know what, whatever. Like it is what it is. It's an IRA. They are very different tools. An IRA is a tool that you can put in place where you haven't paid tax on those dollars. So you've put in pre-tax dollars into this IRA. What that tool is going to do is it's going to grow tax deferred, and eventually when you take the money out of that account, you're going to have to pay tax on every dollar that you've taken out in terms of a distribution. You're also, because the government wants their money at some point, eventually required to start taking an amount out of an account like that. A Roth IRA, on the other hand, is an account that you've already paid tax on. So you've received the money from your paycheck, you've paid the tax, it's in your checking account, you've decided you want to save some money for the future, and you put that into a Roth IRA. That type of account is going to grow tax-free, and so long as you use it for a qualified expense, you can take that out tax-free. So all of the growth that's in that account, you eventually get tax-free as long as it's used for a qualified expense. So it's a big-time powerful tool, but that's the biggest difference in those types of accounts is what type of money pre-tax or post-tax went in and what the tax consequences look on the way out. So there is a difference. That word Roth does mean something to us in this world and should certainly mean something to you as well in terms of your planning as an individual and as a family. Another one that we get a lot of times, I even referenced it when I was talking about the IRA, is people come in and they'll say, hey, I have to take this thing called an RMD. Yeah, what that is a required minimum distribution. That's what an RMD is. And what the IRS will tell you is that if you have money that you've never paid tax on, which is that IRA or a lot of people's 401ks, what they're going to do is eventually they're going to require you to start taking a percentage of the money out of there so that you have to start paying tax on it. What they're not going to let you do is just let it sit in there forever, never take any money out of there, pass it to the next generation, they never take money out. They're going to start requiring you to pay tax on some of that money. For some of you, we're in this limbo period. For some of you, that's going to be 70 and a half. For some of you, that's 72. For some of you now, it's 73. So the age is different for everybody, but that's what an RMD is that age where the IRS says, hey, you've left that in there long enough. We need to start collecting. Let's require you to take a minimum distribution out of there. One that would tie into that a little bit that you may hear us throw out is what we would call a QCD. Again, just part of that jargon we use in our industry. That's a qualified charitable distribution. So some people come to us and would say, you know what? They're making me take this RMD. I don't want it. I don't need it. I would rather do something different with it. If you're charitable at all and you're writing checks to your church or to any charity that you're passionate about, what you can do is you can gift your RMD directly to that organization and not pay the tax, because they're not taxable entities. So you get a deduction and you don't pay the tax for giving that money to those entities. So that's taking your RMD and turning it into a QCD. So that's some of the lingo that you'll hear us say. Another one that we'll often use and just assume that everybody knows what it is, when we're talking with people about investing and we use the term dollar cost averaging, that's one of those that people kind of look at each other and think that maybe they should know what we're talking about, but maybe don't quite know. What dollar cost averaging is basically what you do with your 401k. You put a little bit in every month is what that is. So what that means is the market's going to go up and down. And there are some people out there that will try to time the market and they'll say, hey, I'm just going to try to buy low, and when it's low, I'm going to put a whole lump sum in. Well, that's extremely hard to predict. So it's been proven over time that one of the best ways that you can invest dollars is consistently over time. So you're putting littler sums in, sometimes when the market's high, sometimes when the market's low, but over time, by dollar cost averaging in and being consistent in your investing, it's been a proven system over time to be a great way to do investing. One, because you can't time the market, so you are taking advantage of a down market and kind of buying into the side of a down market like we had in 2022. But two, it also just gets you into the habit of investing, and to the point where if you're putting in a monthly sum, sometimes you don't even think about it anymore, and it just becomes a habit in what you do. So that's what dollar cost averaging is. When we say let's talk about dollar cost averaging, that's what we mean. Let's take a littler sum and let's consistently put it into the market, as opposed to taking big lump sums and sticking them in all at once. The final one I want to talk with you about today is how people request their performance from us. Sometimes people will call and they'll just flat out ask, hey, what have my accounts done lately? Great, we know exactly what they mean. Other times people will call and they'll say, hey, what kind of interest am I getting right now? And those are the ones where we kind of go, we're the ones that are going, well, what are they asking? So there's a difference between an interest rate or dividends that are paid out by an investment versus like a total return. So when we look at general performance and what most people want, we would call that a total return or an average return that people are getting on their investment. It's from point A to point B, what sort of return did I get on my money? That's market value increase, that's dividends that were paid, interest that was paid. You total that all up, and I went from point A to point B. What was that return? So when people call and say, hey, what kind of interest rate am I getting? We have to ask a few more questions to say, well, what exact information do you want? Because there are investments that people will have inside their accounts that will have an interest rate. There are investments inside people's accounts that will pay out a dividend. And we can get that granular to say, hey, here's the dividend that stock is paying out, or here's the interest rate that you're getting on that type of holding. But what most people want is, hey, what am I getting on average, by having my money in these things? And that is what we would term as a total return, or simply what's the return on my account over a given time period. So those are just some of the deals that we answer, some of the questions we answer on a daily basis, some of the industry jargon that we deal with. Obviously, we know you hear a ton of things, and we will even say a lot of things and sometimes not think about the fact that the person across the table may not understand what we're talking about. So never hesitate to ask questions. We're always here to answer, ask for clarification, and we are going to do our part too, especially during Financial Literacy Month, to make sure that we're always talking in a clear and concise way, in a way that makes sense for all parties involved. But we're grateful to be a part of your lives, and if you're ever in need of a conversation, give us a call anytime.